Hi first graders, it's Miss VanVugt. I was talking with Mrs. Grimboom today and asked if I could read you a story. So I'm going to read you one of my favorites. It's called Muncha, Muncha, Muncha. And our author is Candace Fleming and the illustrator is Brian Carras. And it's about Mr. McGrearly, he's one of our characters, and then some pesky rabbits that are kind of sneaky in this story. So I'm going to try my best to show you the pictures, but I might have to read it and then show you the pictures. It says, for years, Mr. McGrearly dreamed of planting a garden. He dreamed of getting his hands dirty, of growing yummy vegetables, and of gobbling them all up. But he never once tried it until... This spring, said Mr. McGrearly, this spring, by golly, I'm going to plant a garden. So he hoed, and he sowed, and he watched his garden grow. Lettuce, carrots, peas, tomatoes, yum, yum, yummy, said Mr. McGrearly. I'll soon fill my tummy with crisp, fresh veggies. You can see him working in his garden just like we have at Westside. But one night, when the sun went down and the moon came up, 3 hungry bunnies appeared. Tippy, 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 pat. Muncha, muncha, muncha. They've got a snack. The next morning, when Mr. McGrearly saw his gnawed sprouts, he was angry. So he built a small wire fence all the way around his vegetable garden. There, he declared, no bunny can get into my garden now. I wonder what's going to happen. Oh, I have to show you the illustration. Do you see the little bunnies? They're watching. And the sun went down, and the moon came up, and tippy, 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 pat! Spring hurdle, dash, dash, dash! Muncha, muncha, muncha. They got through the gate. The next morning, when Mr. McGrearly saw his nibbled leaves and gnawed sprouts, he was really angry. So he built a tall wooden wall behind the small wire fence all the way around his vegetable garden. Humph, he huffed. Those flap ears will never get over it. No bunny can get into my garden now. It's pretty tall. He's got to have a ladder to build it. And the sun went down, and the moon came up. And tippy, 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 pat. Dig, scrabble, scratch, scratch, scratch. Do you see what they did? Spring hurdle, dash, dash, dash. Muncha, muncha, muncha. The next morning, when Mr. McGrearly saw his chewed stems, his nibbled leaves, and his gnawed sprouts, he was really angry. So he made a deep, wet trench outside the tall wooden wall behind the small wire fence all the way around his vegetable garden. Ha! He snorted. Those pufftails can't get under it. They can't get over it. No bunny can get into my garden now. Can you spot where the bunnies are? I wonder what they're thinking right now. And the sun went down, and the moon came up, and tippy, 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 pat! Dive, paddle, splash, splash, splash! Dig, scrabble, scratch, scratch, scratch! Spring hurdle, dash, dash, dash! Muncha, muncha, muncha. Looks like these bunnies can swim. The next morning, when Mr. McGrearly saw his champed blossoms, his chewed stems, his nibbled leaves, and his gnawed sprouts, he was furious. So he hammered and blocked and sawed and stocked, drilled and filled and trapped and locked, and he built a huge, enormous thing before the deep wet trench, outside the tall wooden wall, behind the small wire fence, all the way around his vegetable garden. I've outsmarted those twitch whiskers for sure, he exclaimed. They can't get through it. They can't get under it. And they can't get over it. No bunny, no way, no how, can get into my vegetable garden now. And the sun went down, and the moon came up, and tippy, 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 stop. The 3 hungry bunnies looked and smelled and touched this huge, enormous thing before them, and tippy, 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 pat, the bunnies hopped away. The next morning, when Mr. McGreely saw his untouched vegetables, he was happy. Look, he's got a little window to see his vegetable garden. No bunnies tonight. I beat the bunnies, he whooped, and did a jiggly-wiggly victory dance. Then he climbed over, jumped across, squeezed between, and crawled under until he reached his vegetable garden. Ah, sighed Mr. McGreely, at last. Smacking his lips, he picked and pulled up lettuce, carrots, peas, tomatoes, and with his basket overflowing, he reached inside for something yummy. This picture reminds me of the day that we went and picked vegetables in the garden with Miss Janet, Mrs. Stahl, in Westside's vegetable garden. Do you remember that day? Oh, when he reached into his basket, look what he found. Muncha, muncha, muncha. And that is the end. Here's the last picture in the story. You can see Mr. McGreely, and he decided to share